Hello everyone and welcome to today's webinar, E-Commerce Navigation, the Importance of Getting It Right. My name is Jamie Newton. I am the Communications Manager for Hannafin Marketing, and your presenter today is Linda Bustos. Linda is the co-founder of Edusent, and Linda, if you'll go to that second slide so they can see you. There we go. She is the co-founder and managing partner of Edusent, author of an upcoming book, Ecommerce Illustrated, which is also a blog. So you should definitely check that out. She's got some great tips and some great e-commerce content on there. And if you want to follow her, you can follow her on Twitter at EdusentLinda or at Ecom Illustrated or at both. Hey Linda, how are you doing today?
I'm great, Jamie. How are you?
I'm good. Thanks for joining us. We're happy to have you.
Excited. Thanks everyone for joining us live for this webinar.
Before we get started, we have just a couple of housekeeping stuff. So if you want to join the conversation on Twitter, use the hashtag ThinkPPC in your Twitter tweets, or there is a question box there on your GoToWebinar control panel. You can send us questions through there and send questions all throughout the presentation. We have a live Q&A at the end, and we will address those questions then. All right, and real quick, we have a tiny poll question before we get started. So, how do you manage your accounts? So are you part of an in-house PPC team? Do you do all the marketing, including PPC? Do you work at an agency, or are you a consultant? So if you'll just take just a minute there and fill that out, that would be awesome. And while we're waiting for the results, Linda, why don't you tell us a little bit more about your new blog and your new book?
Well, so you may remember me. I used to write a blog called Get Elastic, and that was all about e-commerce tips and tricks and how to optimize your site, get more conversions. And I recently left Elastic Path and started Adjacent. We are an exact same thing, optimization firm, strategy, technology. And Ecommerce Illustrated is a 52-week journey throughout the year of 2016, and it systematically goes from homepage right through to checkout in a deep dive, including mobile, on ways to optimize your store. So my very first chapter actually is the topic that we're covering today on navigation. So this flash webinar is a snackable, really fast deep dive into why I believe navigation is the most important element on your e-commerce site.
Very nice. So you get a snack today. If you want the full meal, you're going to have to get the book.
Well, all the book content is actually going up on the blog as well, so you get it for free if you want to trek through throughout the year, and it will be available as a download, in the next quarter or so.
Perfect.
The entire thing.
All right.
All right. Well, I'm going to jump in. Let's check out these quick poll results.
Yeah. So it looks like, wow, we have a lot of people that do all the marketing, including PPC. I don't think I've ever seen a result where most of the people do all the marketing. Man, good for you guys. We also have a great 22% that are part of in-house, 17% that work in an agency, and 26% that are consultants. Awesome. Love having all you guys here. And so let's get started. Go ahead, Linda.
Well, I'm glad I'm talking to an audience of PPC savvy folks, because you're going to know better than anyone that the home page isn't a page of your site that everybody always sees all the time. So we can't call it the most important element of your e-commerce site at all. People are coming through all your different campaigns, especially search and paid search. And the role of the home page itself really isn't to convert. It is to get someone to a deeper page, to a category page, to a product page, ultimately to something that they're going to love and want to give you money for. And I apologize if my screen isn't showing fully. How does that look? Are we doing good? It's also not search, and the reason why is that the site search box field doesn't actually expose to your visitor the breadth and depth of your e-commerce catalog and what they can actually find on your site, and that's actually a value proposition of your entire business is your product. And the search box field really is for somebody who already knows what they want in their head, and they might be closer to conversion, but they're also not necessarily in that state of mind where they're looking to browse and gather multiple things. Search is for spearfishers who are trying to find something. And ironically, search is also for folks that fail with your navigation menus. So there are several usability studies that show when navigation isn't intuitive and it isn't clear, that's when people start turning to search. And then search often fails just because the nature of search is that that search engine is going to match queries to content, right? So they're going to look at product descriptions and metadata, and that doesn't always match to the searcher's query. If you want to just run a quick test, I've done this on all the really, really big and popular e-commerce sites, is just run gray versus gray, like the spelling G-R-A-Y versus G-R-E-Y for a product, and you'll always get different results. So it's really dependent on the merchandiser doing a good job of mapping search terms, and that doesn't always work, whereas navigation really is a guided tool to help folks winnow down into an appropriate set of products to consider. So what I'm preaching today is I want your website to have good CAMA, and what I mean by CAMA is category and merchandising architecture. And I just want to make a distinction between selling products and making a content site. So if you think of information architecture, it's a really great way to organize documents and content pages, but when you're dealing with products and really trying to sell products, there's such a more intricate way of getting people to the right product. There's one product could live in multiple different categories. You need to get inside your shopper's head and see, like, what's the best way to guide them through. Is it shopping by concern? Is it shopping by ingredient or by brand or by size or color, or all these different ways? Is it by a thematic category, like cold and flu season right about this time for a drugstore like this, being able to really craft an experience that is a shopping experience. And like, you wouldn't walk into a grocery store and everything is merchandised in departments, but there's also end caps, and there's also ways things are displayed. So we got to think that way. And despite the popularity of Pinterest, we can't just puke products onto a homepage or onto a category page. There are ways that they do need to be organized, but that's where the merchandising flair comes in and say, is this just a skirt, or does it belong in new arrivals or fall seasons or back to school, all these different kinds of decisions. So I really want to put an emphasis on strategic merchandising when you're developing your navigation and actually categorizing products. And this is really something that there should be somebody in your organization that puts on this hat, whether that's a specific role that one person does, or whether there's someone on your team that's going to be the best fit for this type of activity. But a strategic merchandiser knows your customer very well, and then also is comfortable using data to make decisions, is able to craft hypotheses and set up experiments that will validate these hypotheses within your navigation, and then who's also prepared to measure the dollar impact of those experiments and changes. So this is a flash webinar, so the very first thing, if you're going to take on this project, is I want you to understand which bucket you fall in. Are you an everything store, a retailer, or a brand selling direct to consumer? Because this will impact how you organize your navigation. If you are an everything store, I feel sorry for you, because your biggest challenge is going to actually have a usable navigation menu. You may be dealing with 2, 3, and 4 layers of navigation and very, very different product categories. So your customer, it's not going to be as easy to predict what they're going to want or what they're going to want to see, and you really need to help. Like, if I'm looking for, let's say, pomade, am I going to find it under hair accessories or hair styling products or styling tools? Is this intuitive? And your job as a merchandiser is literally to just make it functional, and don't get fancy with your navigation menus. If you're a retailer, you're dealing with a vertical within the everything store, and your customer, say for example, a pet store is a great example. If I'm a dog owner, you as a merchandiser want to show me, first of all, everything that I can find at your site that relates to my dog. People who own pets are very, very passionate, right? So you want to give them a navigation menu that maybe even gets them thinking about things that they never thought about, right? So stain and odor control. Oh, I didn't know that there was an odor control product. Or you know, I didn't know that you carried crates and kennels. It's good to know that your site offers all of that. There's also opportunity for cross-selling and merchandising within the navigation menu. And I'm not saying that this is a shining example of doing it right, but I'm just saying that the difference between a retailer and an everything store is that now you really understand that a customer coming to a certain category, you're trying to maximize the value out of that customer. And somebody who clicks on dog isn't necessarily going to click on bird or holiday unless they actually own a bird or a reptile, that kind of thing. Now, if you're a brand to consumer, you're dealing with an even smaller catalog. So as we go through these buckets, everything store is huge. You know, retailer is larger than brand to consumer. And brand to consumer, you're streamlined. Your job is to cross-sell everything and get that customer to actually understand everything that you have in the line. And you're dealing with a simpler site, so you have the benefit of using either a simple, very simple, easy to scan, easy to use menu like this, or going the complicated route and really trying to merchandise. So shop by collection, shop by value proposition, like these are vegan friendly, or these are, you know, different waterproof, that kind of thing. So you can take a very simple catalog. These are very similar businesses, and you can design your navigation one way or another. And the question you should be asking yourself is this overkill? Is this too complicated? Paradox of choice situation going on? Is this a better approach? These are the kind of decisions you should be thinking about in your navigation, and it might be that this type of an approach actually sells better than the sitemap version we see here. So really, to get this kicked off is you need to sit down and develop some navigation requirements, and these are just some suggestions. Start with your parent categories. So GNC, if you just ignore the flyout menu for a second here and just focus on the top level navigation, and in the right hand corner you'll see that there's a more categories link. This is a common pitfall for everything stores and very large retailers, is that you have so many categories that not all of them can fit into your top level navigation. That's actually a really big problem. I would question whether this is the best way to organize the site. And if I had a merchandiser on this team, if I was like VP of e-commerce for GNC, I'd ask the merchandiser, I'd say, okay, you need to build a case to justify why fish oil is a high top level, you know, gets its own category. And the merchandiser and the sales team might come back and say, look, we've got data to support this. We've got data to say that this is the highest search term on the site, that this gets clicked 15% of the time when people land on any landing page on the site. Those are the types of data that can support and actually validate the decisions that you do make in your categorization. Because alternatively, you could say, well, fish oil could be under vitamins, it could be sports nutrition, it could be diet, it could be energy. It could fit naturally under any of those, and maybe it does live under multiple categories. But really, when you're dealing with a large, complicated site, the real estate that you give to the top promoted categories has to be justified, and you can do tests and experiments to see if substituting them would actually be better. And I'm not a fan of having more categories or see-all links, as you'll see in future examples here. It's really not the ideal situation, especially when you're getting onto mobile sites. Here's another example. So Hallmark. Hallmark actually is brand going direct to consumer, and they've decided to organize things by at a basic level: occasions, gifts, cards, and ornaments. And you'll see that secondary menu here. This shot was taken around Christmas time, that they have the Christmas, birthday, baby, wedding, and anniversary. This is nice because, you know, it removes the need for engaging with the purple menu. You can scan that at a glance, but once you engage with the purple menu, you get this. And this is a problem because it is a duplication of all the other ways to shop. So gifts is going to be the exact same thing but jumbled around a little bit. If you can see, like, it's gifts, cards, and ornaments repeated here, and then all Christmas, all birthday, all these subcategories. You don't understand at this top level as a customer what that means. What is that? Are there video games behind there? Are there plush toys? Like, what is the actual merchandise that you're carrying beyond this level? And so you really have to take a leap of faith and click on the all, and you're not exactly sure what's going to be behind that link. So I would suggest for this this actual example to reconsider the way that this is done. I really like this example for ASOS. So ASOS is kind of like an everything store within the fashion category because it's so large. It's such a large catalog, and it caters to women and men. So it does a really good job breaking out the women and the men have their own sub-menus. And they also do a really good job at chunking these menus and organizing it. So they're using alphabetization under shop by product. So it's easy to scan. If you know that you're looking for shoes, your eye just has to follow down to the S section. They're also using visual separation so that, you know, features like 20% off and new is visually separated from the actual list of categories. And they're using bold and color to call out, you know, specific featured categories. They're also using visual separation for the brands and the edits, and it all fits fairly nicely and is relatively easy to use. Contrast this with Fossil Watches, which has a much, much smaller and simpler catalog offering, but the way that they've organized their menu is not only do they have women and men, but they have a watches category which busts out women's watches and then women's watches by type, men's watches and men's watches by type. So if I'm looking for a leather watch for a man, well, I'm going under men's watches, but leather watches are under by type and also under watches. And there's no real rhyme or reason to what makes a watch by type or makes it a watch. So there's no visual separation between things like, if you look under that first menu, make it your own, that's really like a special unique feature. It's not so much a category as a guided selling tool and a personalization feature of the site, and that doesn't belong lumped in with the rest of the categories. So something like this, I would suggest a reconsider, a redesign, a different way of organizing product. And then a big trend right now, because designers have so much more flexibility with these flyout navigation, is now you can throw in images, you can throw in dynamic content that's personalized. There's so many things that you can do with flyout menus that they've pretty much become like mini home pages. And for better or for worse, right? So again, coming back to developing hypotheses and using data to justify your decisions, in this case, the sacrifice being made to show these featured visual categories is that the menu on the left now has to hide some of the actual categories under view all links. And again, you know, maybe that's fine in the winter when you see a footwear menu and the sandals are behind the view all, like if there really is not seasonal product or very edge case categories, maybe there's a case of hiding them behind view all. But really, if you want to support a customer coming who knows what they want and they go to the navigation menu to see what is the best link to click to get there, using view all when you definitely do have enough space to show them all, might be a case for maybe reducing one or more of these photographs. But again, this might be converting super well, and that's where it comes down to data and actually backing things up. And finally, this is the last slide, and then we're going to move into questions. But this is another example of Navandising for the sake of Navandising. And what I mean by Navandising, I mean like merchandising within your navigation menu. So you can see here CVS is choosing to use pictures, thumbnail images to represent their categories, and this is dangerous territory in itself because user testing, if you follow the Baymart Institute, they've done extensive user testing and they show that repeatedly when categories are represented by a single product, it throws customers off because they either get fixated on that one product and click on it, and then you get to the category page and, oh, hey, where was that boot, or where was that piece of candy? You know, I can't find it, where is it? So that's kind of, you know, a usability issue, but it also might work against really understanding what's behind that category. So if food and snacks, maybe there's gum behind food and snacks, but when I see cookies, I just think of baked goods. So that, again, not always the best way to present categories. And you can see how much space it hogs in this menu. So the shop, household, and grocery menu with the text links, again, if you just look at the very last link there, it's a shop all link. So again, they are making decisions where some categories are not, in air quotes, important enough to show in the flyout navigation. And then there's no alphabetization of these links. You literally have to sit there and read everything and process and think, okay, is what I want school supplies? Is it behind cleaning? Is it behind laundry? This navigation menu is a mess. And then you'll also see that the top level, the graphic categories, are repeated in the text link section. So food, snacks, candy, as seen on TV, batteries and flashlights, they're all repeated there. So it's wasted real estate, it's duplicated links. And then, I mean, I'm eventually going to need glasses and contacts working on mobile phones and computers as much as I do, but right now I don't. So seeing a slotted promotion for contacts and prescription lenswear, you know, is also distracting. It's detracting from my actual navigation experience. So what I'm trying to say here with the flexibility that you have with Navandising is just really don't abuse your privileges. Really think through when it makes sense to use images and visuals and when it makes sense just to maximize the space that you have and use navigation as a goal to just get somebody deeper. Don't throw up all these distractions and visual clutter. Okay, so let's open it up for questions.
Perfect. Thanks, Linda. Yeah, so our first question is, what's better, a flyout or a plain drop-down menu navigation?
Okay, well, great that you asked, because sounds like I just covered that one. There is no black and white answer to that. Going back to the makeup example from Tarte and Urban Decay, you see that those are very similar catalogs, and one has decided to go a very streamlined route, and one has decided to throw everything in the kitchen sink into the navigation menu. On the big flyout menu, if they had designed that a little bit closer to the ASOS example, where there was visual separation, there was, you know, it was literally something that you can scan and process and digest easier, I'd probably be a bigger fan of that. But that would be a fantastic hypothesis to test, to say, our hypothesis is that a very simple, keep it simple, stupid drop-down menu is going to beat a flyout menu, and let's go design the two and run an experiment on it. I think that's how you get your answer.
Great. Good tip. So this next question is from Jody, and she asks, where's the research on showing single product and category navigation? So do you have any research on showing single products in the category navigation?
So I'm gonna have to make an assumption, and Jody, if you can use the text box to reply if you're still on the line. Do you mean showing links and then slotting in one sort of featured product as a you know, alternative, like we are deciding to feature this product this week within the navigation? And if there's no clarification on that, I'm going to just use that and riff on it.
Okay. No clarification yet, but we'll see if she comes back in. So let's go to the next question.
Well, I can answer the question under the assumption. So I think that what you're optimizing for is, yeah, I mean, there's definitely within a certain category, the broader your category and the more products behind the links. So let's just say that it's clothing, and then you go into tops, right? Let's use a apparel site. So if you're going into a tops category and it flies out, and then there's all the different like V-neck, long sleeve, three-quarter sleeve, da-da-da-da, and you throw one product, you have to get into the customer's head and say, like, and this might be different for different product types and category types, but you have to just think whether it's the right timing to promote a single product. If it's higher in the decision making and the drilling down process, then the less likely that one product is going to be relevant. But if you have very narrow categories and say, okay, these are watches, and now I'm going into, it's just all you sell is watches, and I go under the leather watches, and then there's one featured leather watch, you know what? Maybe I might click on that one to get started, because it's it's closer to what I'm looking for. And you'd really need to make that decision on a category by category basis, and based on like whether you fit into the everything store retailer or brand to consumer, because the size of your catalog and the way that you've structured it is going to make a big impact on what you can actually do within your menus, if that makes sense.
Okay. Yeah, Jody, I hope that answered your question a little better. I think it would. So
reach out to me by email if I went in a direction that wasn't what you expected, and I'll answer it offline.
Okay, sounds good. So this is from Craig. He says, when you say you're looking at data, are you talking specifically about analytics or also UX testing?
Yeah, well, you want to do, I would start with analytics and also sales reports, but what you want to ideally be doing is be tracking add parameters to where in the navigation menu. If you go on Amazon, for example, and if you roll over any link on the site and you look in the address bar, it will actually have a tracking parameter, whether it was from the top header or whether you came in through a cross-sell or some other kind of submenu. So it's tracking which menus are sending what where, and then if you use that analytics data, you'll be able to see, you know, what volume is coming through header navigation links on each position. And then if you go and set up an A/B test on that, then you would be tracking the engagement with those specific links, right? Because you might be getting a lot of traffic to a category page, but that might be coming through, like a lot of sites also do, graphic navigation, especially on mobile. So you hit on a home page, and then there's all these tiles with the category, and you don't want to be mixing that engagement with the actual menu engagement. So you want your analytics to actually be telling you when it's been coming through a menu.
Okay, great. We have time for just one more question. This is from Bulent, and I'm very sorry if I'm not saying that correctly, but he said, should you create unique subcategories for SEO purposes, or can that be achieved with filters?
Okay, well, what I see a lot, it's a bit of a usability trade-off, because I see a lot of menus that are doing this for SEO purposes, but they'll throw in the keyword at the beginning of the link title. So, for example, if you're going to have a men's subcategory and you go men's watches, men's bags, men's hats, men's this, and it's just a menu of keyword plus sub-keyword, that's probably uber awesome for SEO, but for the user it makes it really harder to scan and process, and it makes people think harder. So I think that there's a lot more cognitive load that goes into that. So you always, like with everything with SEO, you have to put on two hats: what's good for the search engine and what's good for the user. And you can, you can run experiments on that. I mean, you could run an experiment and see if it does affect user engagement with the menu. And maybe it doesn't, and if it doesn't, then woohoo, do it. But yeah, I mean, there's definite ways you can architect your site to affect SEO for sure. The more deeper levels and subcategories, you know, as long as you do it with the SEO best practices in mind, you won't trip up too much.
Perfect. Yeah, it's, you know, that seems to be our motto in PPC is test, test, test. You know, even when you find something that you think is working, still test it, because you never know. So great tips, great presentation today, Linda. Thank you for doing this awesome presentation for us. If you guys want to reach out to Linda, you can find her again on Twitter at @EdgeAscentLinda. or at Ecom Illustrated, and she also has her blog, Ecom Illustrated, which actually goes a little bit more in depth on this topic today, so feel free to check it out if you want to see more. And thank you everybody for attending today. Linda, if you'll go to that last slide. If anybody has any feedback for us or any questions, you can email us at marketing@hennepinmarketing.com. And I also put Linda's link to her blog on the Think PPC hashtag, so feel free to check it out there. All right, thanks everybody. Thank you, Linda, for joining us today. It was awesome having you, and everybody have an awesome day.